Hi, I'm Neil Lancaster. I'm a partner in the private client team at Blick Rothenberg. Today I'm joined by Chris Gilman and Steph Tremaine, fellow partners in the private client team, and we're going to discuss the changes to the inheritance tax regime in the latest budget. Steph, some big changes around inheritance tax in the budget. Do you want to just give us a quick summary of what those changes are and what they mean for the majority of our clients?
Yeah, so the main big change is that currently a non-domiciled individual will become deemed domiciled in the UK for IHT purposes, which means their worldwide estate is subject to UK inheritance tax once they've been resident for 15 years out of the previous 20. The new rules say that once you've been UK resident for 10 years, your worldwide estate is subject to UK inheritance tax. And not only that, if you leave the UK, that IHT tail will follow you for 10 years.
Yeah, so effectively we've now got a 10-year nose for people coming into the UK before they're subject to inheritance tax, but also a 10-year tail for anyone leaving the UK. So domicile no longer playing a part in our inheritance tax regime.
Exactly.
So clearly I can see how this will create some winners and some losers depending on how it's eventually implemented. Chris, how do you see that playing out in terms of who the winners are, who the losers are?
So I think the biggest winners from that are going to be UK expats currently living abroad. They may well still be considered to have a UK domicile even though they're living abroad at the moment, and therefore even if they've been gone for 20, 30 years, their estate could still be subject to inheritance tax in the UK. That won't be the case anymore. Once you've been non-resident for 10 years, that's it. Your estate is no longer subject to UK inheritance tax, so that will be a nice bonus for them essentially. The losers is, broadly speaking, everybody else. Anyone coming to the UK will, once they've been here for 10 years, have their worldwide estate exposed to inheritance tax, and that is a fairly, harsh change, especially because of the way that these rules are also going to impact on trusts. You will not be able to have the same protections you might be able to do with an excluded property trust that you can now.
Absolutely, and just comparing the pre-existing regime to this proposed new one, and it is fair to say this is subject to consultation, so these aren't necessarily final rules, but individuals could leave the UK for 6 years and effectively have refreshed their inheritance tax position, whereas now it's a much bigger commitment of 10 years, which will deter people from leaving the UK for a shorter period and then coming back.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just very quickly, one last change that was announced was the consultation around the inheritance tax protection for trusts. So for those non-domiciled individuals with offshore trusts, the inheritance tax protection will remain for the time being, but is subject to consultation. Obviously, that's in addition to the sweeping changes, which you've done another video on today, Chris. But how do you see that as being an important thing for the consultation to consider?
I mean, the ability to set up an excluded property trust is one of the core almost benefits of the current non-dom regime. It allows you to take assets outside of your estate that will remain outside your estate beyond that deemed domicile window that Steph mentioned earlier. The new rules suggest that the test will be done on residency every time there's an IHT event, be it an exit, be it a 10-year charge, and therefore it will be significantly harder to take assets out of your estate through a trust. There will be pushback. The consultation will be certainly interesting. I know that there's lots of representation already pushing back on these rules, which seem to be incredibly harsh, incredibly punitive, and probably very dissuasive for people coming to the UK in future.
Yeah, I agree, and it is important to remember it is just a proposal at the moment, but nevertheless it does create quite a lot of uncertainty for our clients in the interim, and I know I'm having a lot of conversations, as are you, around this very point. Thanks Chris, thanks Steph. For anyone watching this video who wants to have a conversation around how this budget impacts their inheritance tax position if enacted, either contact myself, Steph or Chris, or your usual private client partner, and we'll be happy to speak to you.